सुस्वागतम, नमस्कार, केम छो, आदाबार्स, वेरी गुड आफ्टरनून। आप सभी का पीआरएल के अमृत व्याख्यान में स्वागत है, अभिनंदन है। ए वेरी वार्म वेलकम फ्रॉम मी अनिल भारद्वाज फॉर द पीआरएल का अमृत व्याख्यान। टुडे इज द 55th व्याख्यान of the 75 episodes series of Vyakhyans, which is being organized as a part of PRL's 75 years of legacy and history in fundamental physics and space sciences. Established in the year 1947 by the father of Indian space program, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, the PRL's Platinum Jubilee coincides with India's 75 years of independence. Hence, it's a joint celebration of the development of science and technology in India by PRL under the banner of PRL Ka Amrit Vyakhyaan. Today, we have yet another very distinguished Vyakhyaan Karta, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, who is CSR Bhatnagar Fellow, founder of Honey Bee Network, Srishti, Gyan, National Innovation Foundation, and is currently the visiting faculty at IIM Ahmedabad and IIT Bangalore. He will be speaking to us on the title Leadership in Bridging Inclusive Science and Creative Society, Lessons for Learners. We greatly appreciate and thank Professor Gupta for accepting our invitation and joining us today in the PRL Ka Amrit Vyakhyaan, which is a part of PRL's Platinum Jubilee celebrations, as well as Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. I request now my colleague, Professor Nandita Srivastava, to kindly introduce our today's Vyakhyaan Karta to the panel of ABEX, as well as the viewers at the YouTube channel of PRL. Over to you, Professor Nandita Srivastava.
Thank you, Professor Bharadwaj. I don't see Professor Gupta here now. His video is off. Are you there, Professor Gupta?
Professor Gupta, you are there? I see him logged in.
Yeah.
Professor Gupta, you are there? I think he is, maybe by mistake, he has.
No, but he cannot hear us also, it looks like.
Pujit, can you call him?
Yes.
Professor Gupta, are you there?
Yeah, he is muted.
Yes, yes. I think you
Yeah,
seem to
I'm
be.
okay. I missed there was a connection problem, so I refixed it. Yeah.
Okay. So I will now request Professor Nandita Srivastava to kindly introduce our today's Vyakhyaan Karta.
Thank you, Professor Bharadwaj. It's an honor for me to formally introduce Professor Anil Gupta as the speaker of the 55th Amrit Vyakhyaan of PRL today. Professor Anil Kumar Gupta is a visiting faculty at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, after his superannuation in 2017, and is also at IIT Bombay, National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research, Naipur, Ahmedabad, and ACSIR, that is the Academy of scientific and innovative research. Professor Gupta is also well known as the founder of Honeybee Network, National Innovation Foundation, NIF India, Srishti and Gyan. He obtained PhD in management from the Kurukshetra University and MSc in biochemical genetics from the Haryana Agricultural University, Hisar. He has held many important and prestigious positions, as he was a member of National Innovation Council chaired by advisor to Prime Minister during 2010 to 2013, Director Dena Bank 2006 to 2009, Kasturbhai Lalbhai Chair in Entrepreneurship at IIM Ahmedabad during 2003 to 2008, Chairperson of Ravi J. Mathai Center for Educational Innovation at IIM Ahmedabad during 1993 to 1994, Executive Vice Chair, National Innovation Foundation during 2010 to 2000 to 2018, and Coordinator of Srishti and Gyan. Professor Gupta's mission is to expand the global as well as local space for innovations from and for grassroots, link technological ideas in informal and formal sector, both ensure recognition, respect, and reward for creative communities, individuals, children, and tech students, augmenting the open innovations by individuals, institutions, corporations, and countries through frugal and flexible empathetic platforms. He has been instrumental in facilitating Festival of Innovation during 2015 to 2017 and Festival of Innovation and Entrepreneurship Fine through NIF India, hosted at the President's House in 2018. He has coordinated 4 international conferences on creativity and innovation at grassroots with the support of CMA IIM Ahmedabad. He has also pursued Shodh Yatra, a very unique learning walk in every state of India at least once and sometimes multiple times, covering more than 6,000 kilometers during 1998 to 2022 with the Honeybee Network volunteers. Professor Gupta is a recipient of many recognitions and awards, and some of them are Fellow of the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, the World Academy of Art and Science, California, Indian National Science Academy, and Honorary Fellow of ISAE, CSIR Bhatnagar Fellowship during 2018 to 21. He received the Best Researcher Award at IIM Ahmedabad in 2015, Humanistic Management Lifetime Achievement Award by the Humanistic Management Network at the 73rd Annual Meeting of the Academy of Management USA in 2013. He also received PhD honoris causa from San Martin de Porres University in Peru in 2015, Hermes Award of European Institute for Creative Strategies and Innovation in Paris 2012. In 2004, he was conferred Padma Shri for his significant contributions to management education. Professor Gupta has been adjudged as one of the 50 most influential people in the field of intellectual property rights around the world in 2003, and also as one of the star personalities of Asia Business Week in 2001. Professor Gupta has authored a book on grassroots innovation, Mind on the Margin Are Not Marginal Minds, which was published by New Delhi Penguin Random House 2016 and which received the Best Business Book Award at the Tata Literature Life Festival the same year. We are extremely grateful that Professor Gupta has readily agreed to and accepted our invitation to grace our celebrations today. I now invite Professor Gupta for his Vyakhyaan on leadership in bridging inclusive science and creative society, lessons for learners. Professor Gupta, please.
Again, some issues.
I think
Maybe he has pressed the wrong button or what?
no, he is there, but
Professor
can't
Gupta,
hear
you're there?
he is logged in.
Professor Gupta, are you there? I think there is some issue.
The password though?
Yeah.
Yes,
Now
we
we can see you. Right.
Let
Can
me
you hear
try.
us? I think there is.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we
sir.
can hear you. Yes.
You can hear me? All right. So shall I
Yes.
start?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, friends. I'm extremely happy to be with you all today afternoon and share with you some lessons that I have learned about leadership. Leadership which can bridge inclusive science with creative society. And I will draw upon several aspects of this linkage, some going beyond just the linkage with society, but also within our own social network with the labs and within the labs among senior and junior scientists, among these scientists and the technicians. So my effort would be to argue that there is a tremendous potential for learning from anybody and everybody around us. And this is what is the hallmark of leaders who achieve results beyond their capacity. So one of the things that they do is to monitor the context. They do not monitor the content. Most of us spend time in asking, what did you do? What happened? Whether you did this or that. But the context is the situation in which creativity happens, the work happens. So if I monitor the context, the conditions which favor creative work, probably I can go much farther in unfolding, unleashing the potential of people, whether scientists or others, than if I focus on content. This is the first departure that leaders make, and they help thereby unleashing enormous capacity. And as I will see. So just to give an example, there was a girl, she was in class 11th at the time, I think. She shared an idea. She said that, look, my pet sometime get stressed, and I would like to know their stress level. I feel sad if they are unhappy. Now, we had only heard about Internet of Things. But imagine if Internet of Things, thoughts and feelings and beings could be imagined, then you're not just connecting things, you're also connecting beings. You're connecting thoughts, you're connecting ideas, feelings. So now that she triggered a thought which will go beyond the boundary of the concept and will move beyond IoT to areas where we may not have dwelled in the past. So this is possible. And this idea came from a child. Now, one of the second thing that leaders do is do not allow the current capacity to constrain future imagination. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, all of you know well, but I thought others who are maybe on this call and may have or may not have heard of this fact, that when he conceived the SITE experiment, the education through satellite way back in the early years of the space program, there was no capacity to launch rockets or for much less the satellite. And yet he borrowed the space on American satellites, took help of their engineers. If you go to the notes made by the people who were running that experiment, you will notice that there were places in rural areas where there was no power. And somebody used the motorcycle to run the generator, and through that the television was kept on and the lessons were shown. There were all kinds of creativity that was shown during that experiment. Those notes are worth reading, and they're available on the net. How that experiment pursued. And I must tell you that all boundaries were broken. Who is engineer, who is technician, who is boss, who is subordinate? None of this was relevant because that experiment was so prestigious, unprecedented. Even the countries which developed satellites and lent us this space hadn't done this at that time. Now, to be able to conceive of a potential beyond, far beyond our capacity, that's what leaders are all about. and for meeting a social need. He didn't think of satellite for spying. He didn't think of satellites for warfare. He didn't think of satellite for anything else. He thought of satellites for education. And I think this is one lesson it will be worthwhile to remember. Second thing I want to say as a subset of that is, and this is something that I'm sure PRL has not allowed to become a limitation, but many labs do, we limit our imagination by the limits of our instruments. So if my instruments can measure up to, let's say, 15 nanometers, then I would like to measure only those things which are capable of being measured within that range. Below that, I will not be able to measure. Not that we don't, but I'm saying as an example. Whereas the leaders will design their own instruments. Now it's worthwhile asking, how many instruments have we designed? Of course, in space and we did a cryogenic engine, and PRL has been at the forefront of many breakthroughs in our country's strategic areas. But I'm saying in general, we should ask that question. Our students should also ask this question: that should the limits of what I can measure be the limits of the measurement that I must make, and thereby asking those questions which may have a far-reaching impact but are not possible because of the limitation of the instrument will not remain muted, will not generate inertia, will not create silence, because we would then overtake them. And the best labs around the world, and I'm sure all of you have visited those labs, you have seen, scientists design their instruments according to the need of the research, and that's why so much of breakthroughs happen. So I think this is one limitation that scholars have to overcome. Third thing that leaders often track is download to upload ratio. And this is a question I have been asking every opportunity I get to meet, particularly young people, because I think leaders must ask this question: what was our download? What was our upload? So how many megabyte or GB of data, papers, reprints, all kinds of things did we download, and how did we upload? Leaders create knowledge and design public goods. That's the reason why those countries, those labs, those institutions which share a lot are referred more, are cited more, become benchmark, guide our, we measure our success through their standards. That's something we need to change. And I strongly believe that it can be changed. So I'll give you some examples that we cannot, but the concern is that we don't become consumer of the global content, the largest, biggest consumer in the world of global content, that we should be the largest provider of open source content. And each one of us can contribute to that task. So let me give you a few examples that NP Network has tried to do. We have, for example, techpedia.in, which has about 200,000 engineering project information pursued by 550,000 students of our country. I'm sure you will not find PRL students here, but why not? We can upload all the abstracts of the students here. IITs are there. Second, techpedia.in/patent. Now, two of my students, Vyakhyaan and Devika, once they passed a few years ago, said, sir, they have time in the weekend. Is there an unresolved problem in your mind? And I said, yes, I wrote a paper in 2003 about potential of expired patent, but I didn't do anything. I couldn't do anything. He said, what should we do? I said, why don't you download the abundant patents? Now we have a database, open access database of a million abundant US patents. Why? In any field, material science, semiconductors, health, transport, telecommunication, you name the area. And there are a large number of patents which tend to get abandoned because fees is not paid to renew them, either because licensing request didn't come or the field of the knowledge was very fast moving areas. Somebody else came out with better technologies or whatever happened. And yet they are like useful pieces of intellectual property. They were granted patents. They did surpass the prior art, but they were abandoned. Now they're available free to any of our scholars to use it, any entrepreneur to use it, any policymaker to use it. And we can then get some patterns. Why are certain patterns being abandoned? Does it indicate about the two of Zygam and two other colleagues have written a paper recently on the obsolescence rate of technology? Which areas obsolescence is higher? Which areas obsolescence is lower? Am I doing research? Does my research project happen to be in the area which is sunset area or sunshine area? Is it an area where people are abandoning patent because some better technologies have come? Am I behind the frontier or am I on the edge? Some of these questions possibly can be answered by people who can mine this data and use it. Similarly, grid.undp.org.in, it's a database that Vyakhyaan made for innovations from and for grassroots, the global database. Anybody can access, and people can contact the innovator and write to us. Similarly, database on metal plant, people's knowledge, grassroots Indian language database built in 4 languages, Tamil, Hindi, Gujarati, and English. Because if we want to connect the society, if we want to connect with people, then we have to talk in their language. English can connect us globally, but obviously in large parts of our society, if we want to reach government school children, for instance, and many of them have very poor English, and of course science and math, how do we reach them? How will they use content? Can we put English and local language narrative so that they can use this? So there is and then there's a database of common public institutions. So what I'm trying to say is that we have tried to create a small beginning in terms of providing a very large knowledge base in open source. But this is one institution or one group or one network cannot do that. We all have to take it as a mission as to how many of our projects, how many of our lessons, how many of our findings, how many of our papers, all of them can be put in public. Now I want to come to the next thing that leaders do. This is a painting made by our forefathers and mothers about 30,000 years ago in Bhimbetka caves, Madhya Pradesh. And look at the teacher, what he's trying to do, or she is trying to do. She says, you want to make a human figure? Make a cross. Then make a line, and then 2 lines. And then add a hand, head, leg, and you will be able to make a human figure. 30,000 years ago, I am getting the same message that the teacher conveyed, and in open source. Anybody can learn from this, step by step. Beautiful pedagogic tool. Now, isn't that telling us that sharing is in our genes? But last 30,000 years, we have been sharing our knowledge openly. Then why there is sometimes feeling of bit of constraint, some bit of stinginess in sharing our ideas and data and our papers? I will not like to mention this, but I'm aware of some labs, not here, but elsewhere, where one department, a student from one department can't access the instruments in another department. I mean, this is the degree of sharing sometimes, so little. But societies which have grown, they have shared widely so that anybody anywhere in the world would know what we have done and how we have done, and maybe they will build upon it. And obviously, those who lead the way by sharing their knowledge get to be respected and remembered for that. So it is something that I would like to reinforce, that if we want social transformation, then we must pay a lot of attention to creating knowledge public goods. Now, what else leaders do? Leaders reduce the transaction cost of the members. So if this is a triangle which Vyakhyaan, when it was set up in 97, this is a triangle we said innovation, investment, enterprise. Our scientists nowadays are thinking of setting up enterprises because of their technology that they develop. So they have an innovation, but they don't know much about doing business. And I think innovators often do not make a good entrepreneur because they can't make batch by batch consistent thing. We're incorrigible improviser. We can't repeat all the same experiment endlessly. But on a shop floor, you need to make same product multiple times, 1,000 times, million times. That's not something that innovators are very good at. So we need to match it with an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, economic entrepreneur. And then somebody needs to provide investment. Some of our alumni may be in companies which can do, or other private investment or public investment. And generally, it has been seen in our country, this is all the more true, that for early stage, when proof of concept, TRL number 1, 2, or 3, technical readiness level is very low. At that time, it is the public funds which come to rescue. Private sector funds, I have not seen being deployed at very early stage of hard technology. Please remember, out of all the unicorns that you read about in papers, we made 100 unicorns and whatever. Not one is hard technology unicorn. All of them are internet-based online commerce aggregators of one kind or the other, but not hard technology. The technology that you work on, the technologies that are manufacturable, technologies that are something that will help in transcending the limits of what we do by various means. And this is the challenge. We go gaga by the fact that, and I'm not denying the credit that is due to them, because one of the students in my class in 2012 has become a unicorn based on a classroom project, Siddharsha, to set up online pharmacy, pharmacy and medline. So I'm very proud of those people who have developed unicorns, but I'm just saying that manufacturable technologies require much greater help than what is available in our country today. And this is something that we need to pay attention to much more. Now, there are two conceptual diagrams which will tell us how to think about bringing about paradigmatic shift in breakthroughs, making breakthroughs for market and breakthroughs in strategic sector. So if we have a product known, unknown, and we have markets known and unknown, both are known, incubators will help. And our government has set up hundreds of incubators. If market is unknown, then we can develop business research, market research, and find out where the market is. Product is unknown, we do R&D. But when both are unknown, we have a vague idea where we want to go, but we have no clarity about it, then you need sanctuary of innovation. What is sanctuary? Sanctuary has chaos inside, order outside. Incubator has order inside, chaos outside. We can't develop very precise rules of who will do what, how will resources be used, and so on. 10 permissions will be required. No, sanctuary is a place, a chaotic place, but a place where tremendous freedom exists. And for various species, like a wildlife sanctuary, which are transacting their life and surviving through coexistence. Now let us look at strategic breakthroughs. Domain characteristics are known or unknown, and technological platforms are known, unknown. When both are known, we do adaptive trials, we do incremental innovations. Sometimes user-led innovations also help. Many of our areas, I'll give example where grassroots innovators have worked. They have done improvements in existing solutions, repurpose them. These are incremental. Most of them are incremental. But when domain is not known and platform is there, we will have to do R&D with external experts. Areas, to give an example, I was at INS Shivaji a few days ago for a leadership conclave, and I had met once Vice Admiral Ganesh, who told me a problem that in ships, the hull of the ship, when it navigates in the sea, it develops on its surface algae. Now the algae creates friction, and therefore the energy required to navigate the ship through the water increases. So they need a paint which will not let algae to grow, will last long, because generally available paints last almost maximum 2 years or 2.5 years, and then third year you have to do again, and they are very costly. I mean, you imagine a big ship which needs to be painted again and again. Now you need a biological scientist, you need a material scientist, you need a physicist who will look at the friction issues and so on. And of course, you need chemists who will design the paint. And you need local communities who have materials which they use for retting their nets and painting their boats, precisely for the same purpose. And maybe some of those herbal ingredients could be blended or synthesized, as the case may be, with the paints. And we create a hydrophobic surface so that it will repel the water and also at the same time not let algae to grow. Now this is the kind of areas which are left unattended many times, because within one institutional domain all the questions cannot be answered, and we talk about a great deal about interdisciplinary research, but we seldom really bring scholars from different labs, particularly biology, chemistry, physics, together. If technological platform is unknown, but domain is known, we can amplify the form, feature, and function. So either form is changed, features are added, or subtracted, functions are modified. But if both are unknown, we create paradoxical thinking, dealing with contradictions, deliberately looking at things that will make our own ideas obsolete, discontinuous, disruption. And that requires a great degree of humility and ability to listen, learn, and leverage. Because paradoxical thinking is challenging. It hurts our ego when we deal with paradoxical thinking. So leaders who can handle their ego well will encourage paradoxical thinking. Because very often you think, how is it possible that this idea didn't occur to me? Or how is it possible that I couldn't think of it? Or this is not possible? I mean, generally, we deny the ideas more than we accept them, isn't it? Generally, ऐसा तो नहीं होता है यार, ऐसा थोड़ी होता है, तुम क्या बात कर रहे हो? And this is how many times good ideas get killed. In fact, more than others, we kill our own ideas. I've asked this question to my student time and again, who is there in this class who has not killed his or her ideas? And I say, all of you are murderers of your ideas. This is a very serious problem. When we get an idea which is absolutely weird, we tend to keep quiet about it rather than share it and be shamed sometime and laughed at other time. But those are the ideas which will make a difference, I suppose, because they're so strange that people can do nothing but laugh, or people can do nothing but despair or disdain. And these ideas are valuable because they are disruptive, because they cause discontinuity. So creating a culture where paradoxical ideas can be thought about, paradoxical discussion can take place, I think is very important for strategic breakthroughs. And in areas where it happens, it has worked out. So what I'm trying to say is that learning, leveraging, linking, and legitimization are the steps that we follow in the network when we build different institutions. But this is something that we'll have to go through in every place. Wherever we have long-term vision, we'll have to do that. Now, that's the next lesson. Leaders recognize that creativity is widespread. No one person has answers to all the questions. So apart from listening and learning and leveraging, listening, learning, and leveraging. And listening is important in one more relationship. Men should listen to women. You know, where we have few women scientists, but when we have, generally, because we speak loudly, we speak assertively, we tend to make them quiet. तो उनके मन में विचार है भी तो कई बार वो चुप हो जाती हैं. Sometimes they keep a low profile, not because they have less beautiful ideas, but because they probably don't, by cultural upbringing, they don't assert themselves too much. So listening is the crux of the matter when we want to generate new ideas. Of course, learning and leveraging, and then linking and legitimization. That's the task of a leader, to create such links for those scholars, for those ideas which are difficult to pursue, and insulate them from the idea eaters, idea haters, and create a space in the institution for their work. We should also recognize that leaders monitor, map, and track hotspots of creativity. So, and these hotspots of creativity of one kind maybe not be same as another kind, as I would say later. But one of my concerns has been that very rarely do we bring lab assistants, technicians to the research planning meeting. We had done 4 programs for innovation management in DRDO labs when I was at IMA, and one was jointly with ISRO and DRDO. And at that time, we asked these questions: do you invite technicians to your research planning meetings? And often they don't. And I think this is a weakness. The reason is that this person has worked with instruments, has let so many PhD students pass in that lab. They've seen students struggling. They've found sometimes solutions. Sometimes they have guided the students. ऐसे नहीं भैया, ऐसे कर लो बच्चे, and they can get solved problem. So they have a tremendous hands-on knowledge of solving problems, and getting them with us in the discussions cannot be of any harm, but may do some good if we will listen to them as to how else we can solve. And I have many examples of this kind. If there's a time I discuss, I can give you examples where we can do this. So some lessons I'll summarize before proceeding further: that creativity is not uniformly distributed. Not all creative ideas become innovation. Not all innovations are desirable. Using dynamite to catch fish is a creative innovation, but then it's unsustainable. It will kill small fish and big fish too. Similarly, many of you know that because of a technological innovation that helped to identify the fetus, the gender of the fetus, the gender issue is very adverse in regions which are very developed. Can you imagine? So Kheda, Anand in Gujarat has the worst gender issue. Ambala, Karnal, Kurukshetra, Jalandhar. You take all the high growth districts of the country, as if the growth can only be achieved by not letting women survive. That's unfortunate. That's amazing. That's unethical. That is immoral. But that's the reality of our society. More developed a region, lesser chance for a female fetus to survive. And they have developed a lot of technologies. I will not describe them. I will not talk about them. But it's very sad that there are creative, quote unquote. I mean, a dacoit is also creative. A thief is also creative. So that creativity, but per se, is not good and bad. It is. My slide is visible? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So not all innovations are desirable. Some innovations are such which we will not encourage. Learning from both outside and below, both are important. I've always said that if there is no vertical accountability, there will not be any horizontal accountability, which means if we want institutions to be accountable to society, then bosses should be accountable to subordinates. If senior scientists don't listen to juniors and don't listen to students and don't listen to a technician, then it is unlikely that these institutions will listen to people outside the society or outside the institution. So both vertical accountability is concomitant with horizontal accountability, and I think we need to remember that. And how do we create culture of innovation? So as I said, hotspots of creativity of one kind may be not the same as another kind. You all know it well in science, but also in technology. In Saurashtra, for example, we have a lot of mechanical innovations. In Dang, we will have a lot of ideas about herbs, plants, biodiversity, and so on and so forth. Now, let me give you an example about inertia. Next thing that leaders do, they don't live with inertia, particularly civilizational inertia. Look at this shoe mender. So this piece of iron triangle was designed when shoes had nails. So you could hammer it. No shoes have adhesive or stitches. So when you look at the shoe menders from India, from Afghanistan, from Mongolia, from China, you notice something interesting. Mongolia is poorer than us, China is a bit richer than us. They recognize this problem that if you have to mend these modern shoes, you need a clamp, because if you put a pressure after putting an adhesive, there will be vacuum and the air will rush in and the joint will become weak. So you need to have a clamp which will hold it in its place, or you need to put stitches, or both, as the case may be. So you can see the difference. It is nothing to do with wealth, it is to do with mindset. Now, whose problem is this? IITs will not work on it, NITs will not work on it, engineering colleges will not work on it. Who will work on it? So how can we do that? I remember Dr. Sangal in IIT Kanpur had developed some very interesting solution for horseshoe, because the horse riders and the tangawalas told him a problem that the horseshoe gets worn out very fast, and every month they have to change it because the horseshoe expands. So he looked for a particular material which will last longer, and then he did a high quality material science research, and he taught them how to fabricate it, how to forge it, and the problem was solved. So this is one example. Invited to Rashtrapati Bhavan to talk about his solution to the entire students community whom we had invited from the country, that look, you can use very high quality science to solve a common problem. I'll give you another example. Dr. Kulkarni from MIT, and his student, Ritika, I think, they found that in tree, for example, you have xylem and phloem. One takes nutrition above, water above, one brings down. They wanted to make a water filter, MIT Boston. And they find that the pine wood, xylem part of pine wood, is a wonderful filter. So in a tube, you just put the wood and water filter is ready. And you can treat this wood after some time when it gets clogged, either in a solvent or in a petrol or in alcohol or boiling water. That's it. And then, of course, they publish in Nature Communication this paper. So you can get a world-class publication from a very simple solution that is accessible to people, open source solution with very high quality science. So it is not that these problems will not produce some interesting challenges. They will, but we have not paid them attention. These problems are not struck to us. But let me give you an example how Gandhi solved this problem. And if this may have a lesson for leaders, I'll be very happy if it can inspire some of us to find a way of solving problems. How did he solve that problem? So in 1916, he asked Vinoba Bhave, if you want to use the charkha, how much money charkha operator will earn? Bola sir, only 2 annas. He again announced a competition, 31st March on 20, with a 5,000 rupees award. Few ideas came, nothing worked. Gandhi was not happy. He said, we want to give an award to people who will develop solution that is 5 times more productive than the current one. Sialkot se aaya, Baroda se aaya, but none of these worked. Now Gandhi was frustrated. 1960, and now it's almost 1929, and he's not getting a solution. What does he do? On 24th July 1929, he announces an award of 1 lakh rupees, 7,700 pounds. That is 1 lakh rupees. Today it will be 10 crore, maybe. And he says, anybody solve this problem from anywhere in the world, welcome. You can read the whole announcement of how did he define the boundary conditions of what he wanted. Very interesting. When we have announced Challenge Award, we must be having clear boundary conditions so that the people who have to apply their mind know within what range should the solution lie. It is available at jati.techpedia.in/announcement. You can read that. Now, this is what came out in 1931 when he was in jail. This is what he took with him. A teacher car, very low cost, easy to manage, portable. It met all the conditions that he wants. High count. Everything. Now, there's another question. Why do problems long new kind of material, we need new kind of sensor or something, we can announce a competition. We have a network of 7,500 colleges in the country when we send our Gyati announcement, Gandhian Young Technological Innovation Award announcement. And surely somebody from somewhere may submit a synopsis, evaluate those synopses, the one that you like, give them some money, and let them go to the next stage of prototyping or proof of concept. And then if you like them more, give them more money to develop their product. You know how you will assemble all these components for which you are announcing Challenge Award and assemble them together to do something which is strategic, which you may not like to disclose. Doesn't matter. How would anybody know where would component X be fitting which machine or which solution? That you can keep secret. Doesn't matter. But let students be challenged. Students of entire country. The whole country is a lab. Lab is not just PRL. The whole country is a lab. Every student is working for you. Should work for you. Every physics student should be working for you. Every engineer should be working for you. Every material science student should be working for you. Every geophysicist should be working for you. And then these challenges can be a wonderful way of galvanizing. And in the process, you may discover some students who are very bright. Give them an exceptional admission to your institute for PhD. I mean, that's the way to unleash, to get hidden talent of our society, which they may not know English. They may not write good paper. They may not get selected in various competitive exams because they have not learned to develop their reflexes well. They are first generation learner, many of them, but they have brain, they have ideas. So figuring out such talent, which is from underclass, they're first generation learner, many of them, but they're bright, they're brilliant, how to tag them. And I think this way could be one. So Gandhian culture of overcoming persistent inertia did not continue, unfortunately, but we can try, and we can ask ourselves, how many challenge awards have we announced? Why can't we do better? Why can't we announce more awards? Now I'll come to the next issue. How do we achieve collaborative excellence? I believe that now is the era when single Newton or single Bell or single Fleming may not be able to solve problems. You need a lot of people to work together. How do we achieve that? So let me give an example. So Mansukh Bhai Jagani, 1992, made a motorcycle-based drawing machine. Now, mind you, when he made this, there were several hardcore engineering challenges. The first challenge was that the RPM of the engine is about 3,200 revolution per minute. He needed to produce torque. Torque will require reduction in the speed. How much reduction should be achieved? No answer. He had no textbook to read. So he did a hit and trial and found that he needed 1200 RPM, for which he made a gear, bigger gear, and thereby reduce the RPM, increase the torque. Second challenge. First time when he realized that when you take a turning, you need sometime back gear, everybody laughed at him. Within 6 months, every fabricator started copying him. Third challenge, the spacing between the crop rows, cotton particularly, is not uniform. Depending upon the soil, it can be more or less. So the axle needed to be elongated somewhere. So he developed a system to make the width more or less. And like that, for every challenge that he was facing from people, the user of his solution, he was trying to find a solution. There are 400 fabricators who are making these saris in Saurashtra. It took us how many years? 92 to 2022. In 22, it is being legitimized. All these were illegal because they were not given registration, because they were using second-hand parts. Grassroots innovators are the biggest champion of circular economy, sir. They are the biggest champion of circular economy because they use second-hand parts and repurpose them. And sometimes they do in a manner that even the company which manufactured those parts may not have realized. When they were using bullet, do you think Royal Enfield knew anything about how that motorcycle would be used in India for this purpose? No, they had no clue. The factory which was located outside of London. So many times the manufacturer will get an idea as to how they can rethink of their. And we all know that the components of a car or a vehicle have aged far beyond the age of the vehicle. Vehicle may last 15 years, steering will last 100 years, axle may last for 40 years, the differential may last for 25 years. And therefore, if you have fatigue factor on every component, this waste-oriented economy can be changed. And physicists are the best people to tell us fatigue of the material. And by that, we create new standards of fatigue to be imprinted on every component so that the remaining energy in that component can be used for the remaining life of the component by repurposing it or redesigning it. Now, that's a need of the hour. In Europe, you will compress the car after 15 years and make it into a sheet. We can't go by that model. So we need new design, new standard, new parameters of manufacturing, and of our policies must be aligned to permit circular economy, to permit redesign, to permit the remaining energy embedded in various components to be used to their full life cycle rather than shortened life cycle. So how do we, before I close, I will mention a few needs. One of the things I would mention is, can every student map one unmet need, even outside her domain? I'm teaching a course with 692 doctoral students of ACSIR, and I asked them to do that. And some of them put on some very interesting problem, which I hadn't thought about. Many of us may not have thought about, but these students could imagine. And by asking that problem, for example, we were talking about water filters for different kinds of different regions. In Dhimaji, in Assam, where we had Shodhyatra, iron content is very high. And the total demand may be 20,000, 50,000 filters. Which company will make 50,000 filters only and be finished with it? So we need to develop solution for that region, that niche, that district, Dhimaji. And similarly, Saurashtra, Jamnagar, Bhavnagar has more fluoride, and some other region has more arsenic, and some other region has some other mineral, which is more than the requirement. So we need to develop some standard modules, some adaptable modules, so people can assemble these modules and create their own water filters. And immediately several people got together in the class. I said, don't worry about discipline, don't worry about lab boundary. Any student can join hands with any student from any other lab. And we got several groups which agreed to work during the course to find some solution. I hope they will find some solution. So can we seek partnership with anyone who has even half an idea to address it? No matter which lab, no matter which part, so long as it solves an important problem, a relevant problem, a challenging problem, which also gives us scientific insights about solving the problem. As I gave you example of MIT student work, she identified pine wood as a very good filter. And we should be generous in giving credit and acknowledging people from whom we learn, then the collaboration will work. Simple solution. Even oral communications should be acknowledged and cited, and that helps in giving credit to people. So let me come to the point that that's what Honeybee Network has been trying to do, build bridges between formal and informal science. We try to give visibility, voice, and velocity. Visibility, voice, and velocity to the ideas that matter. And this may be a student's idea, this may be a farmer's idea, this could be an artisan's idea, and we need to work a lot on this. The last challenge I want to mention, maybe somebody in PRL will work on it, maybe, we some time ago, there was somebody from Tata Steel sitting in our review committee when I was in NIF still. I'm now on the board, but earlier I was having executive responsibilities. So we have this lac-coated clay pot from Chota Depur. These tribal people make pots lined with, let me just bring and show it to you. Or just one. Clay pan by lacquer. And as you are transparent, that understand, and this is what they do is that at 350 degrees centigrade, they coat it with lacquer. It's a non-stick pan without using Teflon and any other harmful chemical, and it could even lead to graphene, one of the least cost method ever would be developed for large-scale application of graphene. Now, this requires high-quality science research, because you'll have to look at conductivity and then check whether or not it meets the criteria that you will call for. This is the raw one. This is the raw one without coating. This is the with the coating. So what I'm trying to say is that there are ideas which can come out, hardcore physics ideas of physics or other sciences, which can come out from common knowledge, which may intrigue us. And if they can solve problem, why not? That would be good. So this is all I wanted to say, that there are a large number of examples. I have got 5-7 minutes more, so I will just take you through one or two examples. Look at this example. In the lunchtime, government schools, there are 30 children, they have to drink water. Time लगता है बहुत सारा एक pump से, so then this 400 rupees attachment, 7 kids drink water at the same time, 1 person will pump. Simple idea, simple solution, nothing big science, no big science. This is it's possible, it can be done. This is how we do the walk in every part. I don't want to take more time. This is autopoiesis. This is a tree I met on the way in Kangra. So I asked him, "Bhai, kya hua? Why did you? What happened? You seem to be very strange." The tree answered the question, said, "Sir, I was not supposed to branch. I branched." I said, "Then what happened?" Then I realized that this is a mistake. Now I had to repair it. So I made into a parallel stem. Now, as I am talking to you, some cells in my body are going through mutation. Thankfully, these are not cancerous. I can continue to talk to you. And this ability of my body to repair them, to replace them, to bypass them, to supplant them, to supplement them, is called autopoiesis. Self-designed, self-correcting behavior of things. There are many materials which have this property. Imagine a knife which becomes sharper by cutting things. Every time you cut things, it becomes sharper rather than becoming worn out. That will be an autopoietic thing, materials which you learn. Now, can we create institutional mechanisms which are hungry to learn and learn from each other? So that let me just take one example more and then close. And this is the example saying the leaders say no to shortcuts. I don't like the term jugaad, makeshift solution. Sometime, for some time, somewhere, a temporary solution may work. I don't deny that. But that should not become a habit. Then we will never develop long-term solutions. To give you an example, this is a long-term solution. This girl, when she was in class 8 from Patna, asked a question. Some of you might be aware of this example. When you climb up, the front leg becomes shorter. When you climb down, they become longer. Such a walker did not exist anywhere in the world, neither in Europe nor in USA. Now, an Indian girl sitting in a small town from very humble background thinks of an idea which changes the way walkers will be designed in future. There are a large number of such examples. I will not take more time just to say that these are solutions which can come from anywhere in the world, anywhere, anybody can teach us and will be very useful if we can learn from them and develop them as a pedagogic tool, as a pedagogic means of finding out new ways of solving problem. My feeling is that when we solve social problems, we don't have to sub-optimize science. We can have outstanding science, outstanding technological success along with solving a social problem. There is no trade-off. Last remark I want to mention is that one of the weakness I have identified in my discussion with young scholars is many times the guide decides the problem, not the guy, student themselves. And we need to bring about some change here. Some compromise may be necessary, I agree. Some students who may not be able to come across a very good problem, all right, under certain conditions for continuing certain projects, I understand. But if 90% of the students only do work on ideas of the professor, then no new ideas are likely to come. And that's very clear. So while for pursuing our research, we hire research assistants. And for letting students become the leader of future, we get them to things of their own kind and let them become empathetic, let them identify the unmet need. Sometime during 4 years of PhD or 5 years of PhD, one problem of social relevance, if they can address, that would be great. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gupta, for enlightening us with your very rich experience and also reinforcing the simple ideas that I think we all are aware, but I'm sure your lecture has impacted all of us to think and act differently so that we can have a perceivable change in our lives and the society. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Mudit Srivastav to conduct the question and answer session because I'm sure there are many questions coming up from the WebEx platform as well as on YouTube. Dr. Mudit, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Nanita, and thank you very much, Professor Gupta, for such an illuminating and thought-provoking lecture. I'm pretty sure there are going to be lots of questions. So first, I will request my WebEx panelist to raise hand and they can start asking questions, and then later I can take questions from our YouTube viewers. Professor Bharadwaj has a question, so let's start with him. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mudit. Thank you, Professor Gupta, for a very enlightening talk, talking about many solutions which can be local in nature and some can be global in nature. And also talking about, how to think innovatively to find out solutions which can be of use to a very large society at a time. I was just trying to look at this issue of finding solutions in terms of understanding the issue first and then thinking about it, which could be used at places where it is applicable. Like you just gave an example of those things. But there are many issues which needs a real, research kind of thing where you find out something different, new, and then only you can apply it. So essentially, if I look at this problem which you were just talking about, is that there are two parts to it. One is whatever is readily available, you make something out of that and use it. The second thing is you have to really work for it to get a solution out. So what do you think about those two different aspects? And
Well, very relevant. It's very interesting because during the DRDO workshop, we used to have one day, full day, 9 hours, 10 hours session on spin in and spin off. So we asked every lab of DRDO, what are the things that you can give to others, strategic versus civil, strategic organization and civil organization, and what do you need from others? And I have a spreadsheet of these needs and of their giveaways. I wish there was an exchange of this kind among all labs. So maybe you have developed an alloy, you have developed a material for solving some of your problem. The problem has been solved. You don't have to tell me what you do with that alloy, but you think this alloy can have more purposes, but you don't know where can it be used by industry. So if you specify if there's a material exchange in the country where different kinds of materials can be uploaded, and those who find new uses of these material can even be recognized or appreciated, that look, I didn't know that this alloy can go into that property which you have identified. It's very useful for us because now our mind will work in that direction which we had not thought about. So we really have a countrywide exchange of materials, particularly so because our society, you will agree that our artisans, mechanics, they are using 50-year-old material. So our materials have not reached them. So sometimes they may also get interested, but other industries, other scientists, other scholars can come. Similarly, there are needs that we have, and I don't know whether anybody else can meet that need. So both the spin in, which is I want to take from you, and the spin off, that means I can't to give to somebody. Both of these we have done with UNDP ACLAB network in 115 countries, and I and my colleague Anamika, we are teaching a course on meeting the unmet need, 91 labs in 115 countries, and we've done the same thing. That what are the solutions that you need from other places, and what are the solutions you can give to other places. So I think this spin in and spin off workshops could be one area or one way to address the question that you have raised, but the question is real relevant because a lot of things that we have developed for solving our problem remain underutilized or underexploited or sometimes unused by anybody outside our program. And you are dealing with all kinds of strategic programs, space, atomic energy, whatnot. So naturally, there are a lot of things that are developed for solving a specific problem, but they have life beyond that project. They have life beyond this program. And that life has not been harnessed. I mean, we all know how Hindalium came from a space program. The utensils used by the poorest people in our country came from one of the strategic program of space, NASA. So it is not that it is something new that we're talking about, but we have not exploited this potential enough in our country. I think there is a need for that. So it's a good question, sir. I think just some initiative needs to be taken now. We should not leave it at a thought. I think it's something that warrants a real good initiative. Encourage students to create an exchange.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There's another question by Professor Navinder Singh. Navinder, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Gupta, for this wonderful Vyakhyaan. I have the question related to farming. So I know a couple of my friends, and so they are in hobby drone making. So they make drones, and so now the thing is that with drone one can do spraying, the pesticide spraying. So you know that जैसे अगर हम farming में क्या है कि लोग खुद spray करते हैं तो because that is very dangerous. Spray is spraying pesticide by the human, that is very dangerous.
And nobody uses the safety gear.
है ना?
Yes.
So बहुत सारे हैं ऐसे क्योंकि मैं भी इस hobby में हूँ flying में, तो there are people who are their hobby is to make drones, and they make very good drones. So the thing is that these drones can be used for the purpose of spraying, pesticide spraying on crops. So how we can help them? And they are isolated, they are not very good financially. So can I put them in contact with you and somehow
I'll be happy, but let me tell you something. There's an ad that a multinational company selling pesticide in India gave in Newsweek in Europe edition, not Indian edition. And the ad was a case where prevention is not better than cure. A case where prevention is not better than cure. And this was never given, this advertisement was never issued in India. What does it mean? Don't spray pesticides on schedule basis. Spray only when you need that. In other words, drone will not be able to track how many predators are on each plant. There is a value called a threshold value. If number of predators are more than, let's say, 4 or 5, whatever per plant in cotton, then we don't have to spray pesticide.
No, इसमें क्या है कि
what I'm saying now, I'm dividing the question in two parts. One is that the decision to spray should be taken before manually by visiting the field, observing the predators, and if the pest level is beyond is possible to control, the threshold values are given for different kinds of insects. If the value of the pest is below the threshold value, no spray, nature will take care of itself.
No, that can also be taken drone technology, because Tapan Mishra, you maybe know.
I know Tapan, very good friend. Yes.
So these are SAR technologies.
Yes, developed one of the best cameras for the water camera.
Yeah, so they can monitor the plants. So how much is the damage and stuff like that. So I mean, there are people from villages who make drones, and then there is this.
No, I would say that these drones are many very powerful use. As you rightly mentioned, 99.9% of the workers don't use safety gear. They're exposed to pesticide. This is very tragic. है पंजाब में जलंधर में शोध यात्रा में हमने देखा एक बच्चा था हमने पूछा कौन है बोले मेरे अंकल है मैंने कहा अंकल को तो प्यार करता है बोला हाँ करता हूँ तो मैंने कहा फिर उन्होंने सेफ्टी गियर क्यों नहीं यूज कर रहा था so this is a serious problem you are absolutely right of course we will have to take care that the wind velocity and other things we should check the drift should not go to the unintended places all that precaution will have to be taken but drone can certainly be meaningful not only for spraying but also for tracking the health of the crop finding the spots where the pest attack has begun, localize them, control it there rather than letting the disease spread all over. So a lot of things can be done with the drone. And I think the best way would be to let them get help in supporting that. First, their drones should be stable and robust. And now the policy is very liberal. The government has started allowing these startups to use them and by all encouragement to them, all encouragement.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Gautam Samanta has a question. Gautam, please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Professor, for such a nice talk. I was actually, just wondering, the way you see most of the ideas what you have discussed is basically, not the theory. While theory is important, at the same time, experimental aspects of the kids or the students should be there. So, but unfortunately, if you see our curriculum, experiments are not really highlighted. Means we are taught theoretical thing, mathematics, everything. And when at the end of the day, some labs will be there, you go and do it. So that's why we don't really get encouragement towards the experimental research. So if you don't do experiment, then you will not really just improvise with the new ideas and implementation. So what do you think about this aspect? Means how to, just incubate these experimental thoughts in everybody's mind, even though, in the villages, if you see many people, they don't have any formal education, but still they use innovative ideas to solve their local problems.
Why in our own homes, Gautam, when a child is born in the infancy, we have seen mothers, our sister, our wife, our mothers may have used nutmeg or asphatia hing. Usko घिस के नाभि पे लगाते हैं ना भाई. Correct? Most of you must be familiar with that. How many drugs exist in our country, for that matter, in the world, which are delivered through naval route? Tell me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? A blind spot, completely neglected drug delivery system of our body, which has been time tested, which works, which releases the constipation or the gas in the body. If mother has eaten something heavy, then it affects the child who's suckling the milk. And we have seen that mother's food will affect the child, infant, and therefore they put the nutmeg. थोड़ा घिसा पत्थर पे लगा दिया नाभि पर, आराम मिल जाता है बच्चे को. अब नाभि इतना अच्छा ड्रग डिलीवरी रूट है, काम तो नहीं हुआ, इस पे रिसर्च तो नहीं हुई. So there are questions around us where not only in rural areas but even in urban areas, we know that there is a time-tested knowledge, but somehow this knowledge has not been put to experimental use. You are absolutely right. So I try and encourage our students wherever I have opportunity to teach that we should look at the conditions under which new knowledge is produced, and also traditional knowledge can be put to new uses and then find solutions for that. This is something that is very, very important because that generates experimental approach to mind. That people see, oh yes, experiments are being done right in my home. So in IIT Bombay, I was teaching a course on design, technology, innovation with B.K. Chakravarti, and we were both teaching. So one day I asked a question. I'll give you a small example. There were 200 and odd students in IIT Bombay, this course. And I asked the question, who eats cold food who eats the food cold in your home? So after a few minutes, everybody said, mother. I said, यार mother ने तो बहुत पाप किया, पहले तुमको पैदा किया, उसके बाद में तुम्हें IIT भेजा, और now she eats cold food. So we decided an assignment on the spot. For 1 week, each one of you will feed warm food to your mother. And in the last day, you will upload the pictures of the very first bread and the last bread and so on, and kitchen and everything. And the last day in the class, you will invite your mother to also class. I want to see on their face, what do they say about this experiment? And mind you, when these kids did that, they realized that the height of the rolling plate, जो चकला है, उसकी हाइट कम है, तो मदर को झुकना पड़ता था. अब बच्चों को झुकना पड़ा तो वो तकलीफ दिखी, मदर झुकती थी तो नहीं दिखती थी. इतने साल से माँ रोटी बेल रही थी, उनको दिखी नहीं है प्रॉब्लम कि मदर झुक रही है, लेकिन जब खुद झुकना पड़ा तो महसूस हुआ. So I think immersive learning. Gautam, my suggestion is that we should make students voluntarily suffer. I take my student on 2nd September. For 1 week, will walk with me in the villages, me and Navdeep. And our job is to make their life difficult and make them suffer. Of course, they register for suffering in the sports. And in the process, they will realize what problem people go through, what materials they use, what conditions they live in. Hopefully, someday, some of them will find solutions. So I think immersive learning has a great value. I would take my students another goes for the city walk. We walk up to Teen Darwaja and then walk through the place and then come back. They should see that within Ahmedabad there are people living in the gathering and food gathering and hunting stage. I mean, there are people who collect twigs on the road and use twigs. They can't afford gas. They don't have other sources of the fuel. So therefore, they should experience these problems. Then they might come out with good solutions. So I would strongly urge immersive learning process. It's good for children. We did the children workshop, and one child, for example, a group of children went to a potter. They came and did a study of the problem they face and then asked me, they quizzed me as I would quiz them. They said, Professor, pick up one point which you improve so that the productivity of potter will go up. I said, should we make the pot plate where they make the pot motorized? I was wrong. I see it is wrong. I tried 3-4 answers, they said wrong. Now this child tells me, and listen to it carefully. He says, sir, the sieving of clay takes the most time. And I said, my goodness, this is good physics. If particles are of unequal size, then obviously the clay pot will not hold water. There'll be space, water will leak. I had never thought about particle size as an important condition of making pottery. This child taught me that. So we can learn from the children. We can learn from people about some interesting things that are obvious but not obvious to us. So Gautam, I would encourage that we encourage our students to do immersive learning. Yes,
yeah. So in that same line, basically, just the curriculum, Indian, experimental curriculum, whatever we have just gone through. Do you think that there should be some changes to make an impact in future, or it should go the way it is?
Absolutely. I think NEP has missed this point that we must have a significant part of the curriculum where we help our children learn observation, not seeing. We see things, but we don't observe them. How to observe an inefficiency that we are living with. How to observe problems that we are living with. And child should observe that when his grandfather or grandmother gets up from the bed, sometimes they have to make extra effort. Why? Because the knee is not at 90 degrees. How do you make knee at 90 degrees? Raise the height of the bed so that when they get up, their knee is at 90 degrees. This is a simple ergonomics. They should learn from their home. They will never forget this lesson. And these are the kind of things that children should be made to observe. Observe all the pain points around home. And from there, you go further out and then see why somebody sets the yogurt better than others. किसी घर दही अच्छा जमता है, किसी घर नहीं जमता है. क्या कारण है भाई? जरा पता करो ना इसके ऊपर, रिसर्च करो. क्या कारण है? Let them, because we should learn to make SOP. We should learn to design the step-by-step process of experimentation. छोटी सी बात है दही जमाना. How many kids can do that well? Or how many of us can do well? सर्दी में थोड़ा गर्मी चाहिए, गर्मी में थोड़ी ठंडक चाहिए. All those questions are parametric questions which can be parameterized and married and experimentally proved right or wrongs. I would strongly urge that even if the government doesn't change the curriculum, we should at our end persuade all the teachers whom we know, whichever way we can influence, that they should introduce same content they can teach through experimental approach, observational approach, clean observational approach. That will go a long way.
Thank you, sir. Professor Shom Sharma is having a question. Sir, please go ahead.
You are muted.
Muted.
I think you are muted, Professor.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Professor Gupta ji, for giving very fascinating talk on rural innovations and how we can develop the new leaderships and new type of discoveries. I am associated with the rural background, and in rural background, I find that, as you have rightly told, that there are so many pupils are really blessed with the so many techniques, as well as you can say the herbal formulas or something like that. But I found and tried to persuade many of them to take up education, but I failed. I will say like that, I failed. And another thing I said, if you don't take education, then why don't you try to it, commercialize it, or you bring it to the like that in publication stage in simple book, then it will reach to the masses. So, sir, can you tell all of us how to persuade them more to these basically grassroots things which are hidden? There's so many number in our villages, and the talents are there. So they should come out because they don't have degrees. They are lost in the masses like that. They don't have education. So can you tell sir few tips to us?
I will begin with the tool that I have in my hand as a teacher. I have my students in my hand. There I can use a little bit of my power coercion. So I give to students an assignment every single batch in ACSIR as well as in wherever I teach, that talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents, talk to your neighbors, talk to your uncle, talk to the maid servant at your home, talk to the driver, talk to the lift person, talk to the gardener, talk to the lab attendant, and find out some solutions that they use in their everyday life, which would be interesting for you to share in the class. And I tell you, every time I learn something that I didn't know. For example, one student, one lady, Rani, who was helping as a maid servant to one of the students in Micah, who was there. I was teaching a class, did this assignment and said, "Sir, do you know that when water has to be drunk, it should be drunk while sitting? When you take a milk, you should be standing." Oh my God, I had observed in UP when I come from Bulandshahr, people used to stand on the halwai shop and drink milk in coolers and glasses standing. It never occurred to me that there's a way in which our alimentary canal is so designed that the fat should move vertically rather than water, which should move slowly. And this lady taught us something that I had never learned in my life. For whatever strange reason, nobody told me that when I was a child. So there are lessons that we can learn about everyday life, about the biology, about physiology, about agriculture, about science, which we can learn. And then it will also make us humble that while these people may be illiterate, they have knowledge. And there is, just as we have knowledge which they don't have, they have knowledge which we don't have. And let us work like peers and help each other. It is very important that people like these people, tribal people, they should get the advantage of our science and technology to analyze this material. And similarly, they materials from other liberated, but they will polish it more smoothly. अभी तो वो कपड़ा लेके उस पर घिसते हैं तो यूनिफॉर्मली नहीं होता है, लेकिन अगर कोई तरीका होगा जिससे यूनिफॉर्म हो जाएगा, they'll feel good about it. Or there is a material which can disperse the lacquer better in the finer particles, and therefore layering is uniform. That also will be useful to them. So there are a lot of things that we can do in this regard. I would suggest, if there are students on this call, please give an assignment to all the doctoral students at PRL. They should submit next Monday in a spreadsheet one example of traditional knowledge or functional knowledge from their elders or from their neighbors or from their lab attendants or gardeners or whosoever. And then we can discuss it informally again once we can meet together and look at that how much wisdom will be there. Plus, their grandparents will be very happy that okay, our child, though he's studying in PRL, is interested in our knowledge. So the intergenerational linkages will be forged. They will appreciate our PRL because they'll say, यार यहाँ पर पढ़ाते हैं बाकी चीजें भी, लेकिन ये भी सिखाते हैं कि बुजुर्गों से कैसे सीखना चाहिए. So that will give higher respect. उनके दिमाग में भी एक समझ में तो आएगा PRL में क्या क्या होता है. ये करवाइए आप. तो सर मेरा रिक्वेस्ट है आपसे. This is a fun exercise. They will enjoy. I can tell you, they will all enjoy when we share this spreadsheet. You will find that so useful. And there are sometimes very unusual knowledge which we get from far off places from where our students come. हम तो पहुंच भी नहीं पाएंगे वहां तक. तो इन स्टूडेंट्स के जरिए हम उनकी कम्युनिटी के साथ में जुड़ जाएंगे और उनके एल्डर्स को उनके नाम के साथ रिस्पेक्ट देंगे, उनके ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स को उनके नाम के साथ रिस्पेक्ट देंगे कि भाई आपसे हमने ये सीख।
Professor Gupta, are you there? Are you able to hear me? Professor Gupta, we lost you. Can you hear me? Hello. Hi, Bhushit, could you please check if
Hello, Mudit.
yeah, okay.
Bhushit is trying to call him, but he's not getting response. So we'll wait for one or 2 minutes, and then
Sure. We have just got 2 more questions on the chat window. If he's able,
yeah. So
we will take.
Yes, sorry, I missed for a few minutes. I had to reconnect. Is it all right now? So yes,
We are able to hear you, sir.
Thank you. So
we have got 2 more questions in our chat window.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So Bala is asking, I'm reading. Do you think engaging in more science outreach would bring the necessary changes in a short time, means a couple of decades?
I would say when we say delivering science, I've always asked this question to myself. Are we saying there is no science in everyday life of the common people? Don't they know that if you boil the milk 3 times, boil and cool, it lasts longer? Don't they know how to keep milk fresh for hours and days together without refrigerator? Why don't we realize that there is a science? Don't they know that when जब पूरी को तलते हैं, मैं हिंदी में बोल दूं 2 मिनट के लिए, तो जब पूरी को तलते हैं तो पूरी नीचे जाती है, जब तल जाती है, जब फूल जाती है तो ऊपर आ जाती है। तो buoyancy का कंसेप्ट उनको नहीं मालूम है ना, वर्ड buoyancy नहीं मालूम है। ये तो मालूम है कि जब उसमें हवा भर जाती है तो वो ऊपर आ जाती है। So why don't we teach science which is embedded in everyday life rather than taking science from outside? Most science education experiments, unfortunately, with due respect to them, have failed to talk about science underlying everyday life. And if we must create outreach, but not outreach in the conventional sense कि हमने एक बैटरी ली, एक मोटर ली और दोनों को जोड़ा और बताया कि देखो ये बिजली पैदा हो गई. We should show them कि जरा कंघे को 4-5 बार आप सिर पे काढ़िए बालों को, तो उसके बाद उसमें स्टैटिक करंट पैदा होता है. दिखाइए उनको स्टैटिक करंट. They will see that very easily. तो वो जो साइंस है ना एवरीडे लाइफ में, आप स्वेटर के ऊपर हाथ रगड़िए बार-बार, आपके हाथ में स्टैटिक करंट आ जाता है. तो वो उनको दिखाना चाहिए हमको. So there's a need to show science in experiments that I can easily handle myself through my material, my condition. Your job is to explain the scientific principle underlying it. That is, to my mind, the best way of teaching science. फिर बच्चे कोई लोग भूलेंगे नहीं साइंस को, उनको ये नहीं लगेगा साइंस तो मुश्किल होती है, साइंस तो बाहर से आती है. अरे भाई, साइंस हमारी जिंदगी का पार्ट है. Anything which is replicable, which is refutable, which is testable, and which can produce same result whether I do it or somebody else does, is scientific. Simple principle है साइंस का, तो वो हम लोग नहीं कर रहे हैं शायद. But it's a relevant question. My only suggestion is to change the way we take the science. That's all. Not that science outreach is not good. Science outreach must. But science को समझाना पड़ेगा कैसे उनके जीवन में है. फिर उसके ऊपर हम बिल्डअप करके वो बातें बताएं जो उनके जीवन में नहीं है.
Sure, sir. There's a last question from the chat window from KK School. The question is, sir, how to develop creativity and what is the best book to read on this topic?
The best book is the book outside our house on the street. Please walk on the street. Walk, walk, and walk. I love walking. And observe, if you are from South India, you will observe that everybody in the morning cleans the common space in front of their house and makes a small design with a rice flour, which is meant for ants to eat or anybody else to eat. वो हर रोज नया डिजाइन बना लेते हैं कई बार. तो जो क्रिएटिविटी है वो हमारी जिंदगी में, मेरी माय मदर would use the old plastic bags, उनको काट करके उनका थ्रेड बनाती थी, फिर क्रोशिया से she will weave the mats for keeping your cup and other things. She would not let it go to the waste. That's creativity. When I was a child and I bought something from the market, at that time shopkeepers didn't have envelopes, so they will have a piece of paper, they will keep the things in the paper, fold it like this, एक धागा टंगता था ऊपर से, they will take a thread, tie it with it, that was your packet. My grandfather will say, now take your things out. He will spread the piece of paper under the bed and hang that 1 meter of thread on a nail. वो धागा भी नहीं फेंकते थे, वो कागज भी नहीं फेंकते थे. Next time किसी को देना होगा तो काम आएगा. Now everybody has some or the other examples of very creative problem solving around us. We should begin with that. Books से तो पढ़ना चाहिए, लेकिन बुक से ज़्यादा है मैं समझता हूँ कि हमारी जिंदगी की किताब से पढ़ें. Look around us, find out how people solve problems with creative solutions. And then surely, I mean, one girl sent us an idea from Chhattisgarh, Bilaspur. छोटी सी बच्ची थी, सरकारी स्कूल की, बोली सर कई बार हमको ना पता नहीं चलता कि हमारे शरीर में पानी की कमी हो गई है. Look at that wonderful solution. हम सबको उससे तकलीफ हुई है, हम सब भूल जाते हैं पानी पीना, है ना, और उसकी वजह से फिर शरीर में प्रॉब्लम होती है. बोले ऐसा क्यों नहीं हो सकता, कोई छोटा सा डिवाइस हम बांध ले जिससे हमें पता लग जाए बॉडी डिहाइड्रेट हो रही है, पानी पी लो भाई. अब ऐसे डिवाइसेस महंगे महंगे तो हैं, सस्ता तो कोई नहीं है. उसने बना, वो अभी हमारी डेली लाइफ में तो नहीं यूज कर रहे हैं हम. सो माय सजेशन इज दैट वी शुड लेट चिल्ड्रन स्पेकुलेट एंड थिंक अबाउट दिस सॉल्यूशंस. मेरे पास तो बहुत सारे एग्जांपल हैं. हमने यंगेस्ट चाइल्ड को अवार्ड दिया था, वो क्लास 1 का था, विरुद्धनगर से, मदुराई के पास, तमिलनाडु से. सो वी हैव फाउंड सच children all over the country who are very creative. One child, my last example, Adarsh from Katihar in Bihar, said, why shouldn't there be a 4th traffic light, blue color? Now think for a minute. This fellow is disrupting the entire traffic system of the world. We keep on thinking, 4th light, but kyun 4th light kyun chahiye? Sir, if there's a traffic jam ahead, the blue light will tell you that there is a traffic jam ahead. Don't go straight, go left, go right, take a U-turn. आगे जाओगे तो 1 घंटा खराब होने वाला है आपका. Isn't it a beautiful idea? Imagine if traffic lights will be changed tomorrow. This boy will get a credit for changing the traffic system of the whole world. Traffic jam to sab jagah hote hain. So I'm saying that creativity is there when we recognize an unmet need empathetically. Samvedana, sam mane barabar, vedna mane dard. When we realize somebody's pain as intensely as that person feels it, then it doesn't remain that person's pain, it becomes our pain. Sajanshilta through samvedana. And pedagogy is स्वांतः सुखाय. अपनी खुशी के लिए करना ये काम, किसी को अवार्ड के लिए या किसी से रिकॉग्निशन के लिए जरूरी नहीं है करना. I should do it because I feel good about myself. That is a great motivation for solving problems. I hope it helps.
Thank you very much, sir. I don't see any raised hands and I don't see any more question in the chat window. But sir, if you permit me, I'm having a question as a last
Please
question.
go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. So this question arises from your earlier part of the presentation, where you mentioned that in India we are having so many software unicorns, but not a manufacturing unicorns. I would like to draw a comparison. Say, take China. It was mid-80s to early 90s when both India and China, at that time we had a similar population, similar GDP, similar per capita income, and we were opening our economies. But since then, in last 30 years, China has, leaped ahead in manufacturing sector. We unfortunately could not. Why do you think it happened? Has it something to do with, as you mentioned, the civilizational inertia and their quote-unquote authoritative political system in China that helped to overcome that inertia? कि नहीं तुम सबको यही करना है. So why do you think it happened?
I'll give you a simple thing. During COVID, we found many diagnostic kits were developed, many other techniques were developed. There were students who developed device by which they could analyze the cough of your body, the way you cough, and through that they could do diagnosis by analyzing the sound signature of your cough. So there were some very creative solutions that were developed. And naturally, you would need money to do large-scale data collection and all of that. The students can't afford to collect data from 5,000 people. You need to provide support for that. Then after that, let us say they got the product, they got it approved. Now, how many PHCs in our country have procured the point-of-care devices developed by our startups? Public procurement is a very major driver. Solutions हैं हमारे पास. Cervical cancer के लिए है, बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स के लिए है, शुगर के लिए नॉन इन्वेजिव है, 3 वेवलेंथ पे लाइट पास थ्रू करते हैं फिंगर के साथ, फिंगर में से, एंड यू गेट द शुगर हेमोग्लोबिन वैल्यू, नॉन इन्वेजिव, नो ब्लड रिक्वायर्ड. लार्ज नंबर ऑफ सच इनोवेशंस हैव बीन डेवलप्ड बाय यंग पीपल. बताइए तो सही कितने प्रोक्योर हुए? सो आई थिंक दिस इज अ प्रॉब्लम विद आवर ब्यूरोक्रेसी, the mindset of our bureaucrats who do not realize that they will spend tens of thousands of crores. Can you imagine the custom duty on our equipments now? We have got 18% GST on equipment. Your budget has already been reduced by 18%. Well, sir, Anil bhai, sahi baat hai ki nahi? You have now to pay 18% GST on scientific equipments. It was 5% earlier. What will happen? That much of budget is reduced now. Rather than increasing the budget, we have reduced the budget. I think scientists don't speak and protest much. They need to protest and argue that the solution that we have produced must be procured for larger scale trials. And these trials will give us an idea, will give us an opportunity to take the solutions widely. We don't give chance to people to do larger scale trials. उसके लिए पैसा चाहिए, उसके लिए बच्चों को मदद चाहिए. कहाँ मदद मिल रही है? तो हमारे solutions shelf पे रह जाते हैं. चाइना के अंदर वो चले जाते हैं. I've been traveling to China actively for many years from 2007 onwards. I have seen that even provincial government as district council support the technologies. When they find something useful, they immediately say scale up करो उसको, पहुंचा दो 500 स्कूलों में या 500 dispensaries में. That's the way their mind works. They all the time think of trying it at larger scale and then find out if there's any problem and then solve it. We don't do that. We don't do. Give me an example of large-scale testing of a health solution or a material testing quality. You may have developed some tool for developing fatigue of material. हमारे सारे ब्रिज टूट जाते हैं, कुछ हो जाता है, आपके पास कोई डिवाइस होगा, शायद आपके स्टूडेंट से बनाया होगा, जिससे आप पता कर सकते हैं ये मटेरियल कितना फटी हो गया है, ये अगर नहीं चेंज करेंगे तो 2 साल में गिरने वाला है. Supposing you have some device, obviously it needs to be tested under different conditions of humidity, moisture, salt, content in the air, etc., so that it becomes robust. And then every engineer in public health department should be having this machine so that they can check the fatigue factor of the public installations and bridges and roads and whatever, and the bridges that are there. So we have solutions. I'm sure you have the solution of this kind, but it does not find larger scale trials. So we must lobby for it. We must argue for it. Our academies, unfortunately, are not very articulate on this issue, but labs can be, scientists can be. And today I was in a meeting and I told the minister concerned that, look, please think of what the purpose of this award is and give that award for that purpose. Don't change the purpose. And he listened to me and he did it. And I was happy that we could get someone deserving that recognition. So sometimes we need to assert. If we look for only small comfort of being in good books of whatever power they are, then the things will not work. And I think scientists are the only people who can stand up their ground because their strength is not coming from outside. Their strength is within. That is only those people can stand up to power and authority. We are not standing up much. We are not. I can go on, but I don't want to take more time. But there are ways where we know something mistake is happening. How can you have the same design of toilet all over the country? Groundwater conditions are different, soil conditions are different. And how can we have the same design? Shouldn't we be speaking about it? We don't. And thereby, we let things go to that level. China में कितना भी authoritarianism हो, लेकिन वहाँ पर when they talk and they discuss, they give freedom to people to talk. मैं उनके साइंटिस्ट से मिला हूँ, फैकल्टी यूनिवर्सिटीज में गया हूँ, वो उनका सिस्टम बड़ा रोबस्ट है इस मामले में. And I tell you, the space program and that program which PRL has been supporting very actively, वहाँ पर इसरो ने इतना कुछ किया तो शायद इसीलिए किया कि उनकी कल्चर थोड़ी डेमोक्रेटिक थी. वहाँ पर सबके सुन लेते थे वो, तो इसलिए सबके बात शायद अंदर आ जाती थी. आप लोग कर पाते हैं इतना काम because you are able to listen to each other. Those labs which have more democratic culture, perhaps work better than those which are authoritarian. That is true. But in authoritarian society, your lab can be democratic. That's what I'm trying to say. China has authoritarian society, but labs are democratic. Our is a democratic society, but labs sometimes become authoritarian. And that's the problem.
Thank you very much, sir. With this, I would like to conclude our question and answer session. And thank you very much, sir, for patiently answering all the questions in great details. With this, I would like to invite Dr. Bala Shivraman for the vote of thanks and for the concluding session. Bala, please.
Thank you. It is an honor and pleasure to propose the vote of thanks. Professor Anil Gupta's talk reminded me of the phrase, every problem has a simple solution. And I'd like to point out a few catchy quotes from his talk today. At least for me, the whole country is a lab. And also he said, learning from outside and below is very important. And hotspot may not be the same. And the most important what was there and from the question and answer session, walking on the streets and observing around is like going through many books. Thank you, Professor Anil Gupta. Most of you may agree with me after the talk that his aim is to bring leaders in science for the benefit of the society, which appears something similar to what Professor Y was also trying a few decades back. He also touched the strength and weakness in bringing leaders in science. We look forward to many leaders in science for the benefit of the society. With this, we have come to the conclusion of today's Vyakhyaan. Stay tuned for the Vyakhyaan next Wednesday. Thank you all.